Today's shout out is for Zuldinga. Tawnos the Toymaker versus Jared, Dihada, and Queen Kayla. Yeah, we've got a decent amount of mana there, some protection, can get out our commander fairly quickly, so we keep there. We draw into a Woodland Bellower on turn 1, so I think we're okay to just throw out the Birds of Paradise here, get the Summoning Sickness away from that. A land tax for Jared, who is last in the turn order, so should get some good use out of that. Has 5 cards in hand. Draw into another beast in the Rampaging Baloths. So, hoping for a land next turn. We get down Sol Ring and the Swiftfoot Boots here, and then I'm hoping that if we get into a land next turn we can play our commander and equip the boots onto it. But as it stands now, we'll just put the Swiftfoot Boots onto the birds. Thought Vessel for Kayla. Sword of the Animist being played by Dihada. Stoneforge Mystic for Jared, so yeah, 6 cards in hand. They did go for the land tax, so playing out the mountain that they just tutored for. They've got 1 plains in hand. About to see the equipment they search for as well. Searching out Pariah's Shield, which obviously goes really well with the commander. Okay, land off the top please. Excellent, an Ancient Tomb, so going to have mana to spare here. Throw down our commander whilst everyone is tapped out. And then put the Swiftfoot Boots onto there with the floating mana, and yeah, just holding up Birds of Paradise mana and passing Queen Kayla into play as well. Varragoth for Dihada. Okay, throwing down a plateau, so we know they've got 3 basics and the Pariah's Shield in hand, 9 cards in hand in total. Noteworthy that the basics don't match, which it's a good habit to get into, to have your basics match, because if someone like me is obsessive and follows the exact card you've got in hand, then it's more difficult to follow if all your basics match, but it's much easier to follow if they don't. So 8 cards in hand, they go through to the end step and discard a Wooded Bastion. They did play out the Pariah's Shield there, by the way, so I think we should have Manglehorn in this deck, which means we should maybe go for the Woodland Bellower here. I've drawn into the Great Henge, which will... that's a good reason to play the Woodland Bellower here, so yeah, I think we do that. We've only got double green thanks to the Birds of Paradise, which is noteworthy. So playing a beast into the Tawnos the Toymaker, we'll get a copy of this, which means additional enter the battlefield triggers. So the first thing can be, let's see here, maybe this one is going to be a good idea, Wirewood Savage, and then we can actually draw some cards and try and get into some lands. So then we have a beast enter for the Wirewood Savage, that will draw us a card, and we'll find ourselves a Manglehorn so that we can get rid of that Pariah's Shield before it does any real damage. Argument to be made, maybe we could have gone for the Simic Beast that can swing in at things and blow up artifacts and enchantments, because this thing is worth getting rid of as well. But anyway, I've done it now, so destroy the artifact. The artifacts are going to come in tapped from now on. Hopefully draw into a land here. Nope, got into a 3 visits though, so yeah, we'll just have to pass at that, I think. Want to continue to protect the Tawnos. Stalwart Pathlighter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, then each creature you control gains indestructible. Yeah, creatures you control gain indestructible. So they do have indestructible now thanks to the Signal Pest. That does come into play tapped, but they don't have haste anyway. Solemn Simulacrum comes into play tapped, so the Manglehorn doing a little bit of work here. I thought they would equip up the sword to the Varragoth and swing in and use the boast there, so not being punished too much for leaving the Sword of the Animist in play. Went for 1 plains with the land tax there, and we see Astor, Bearer of Blades, into play. Okay, getting into an island could do with a green source really, so the Great Henge and 3 visits being played this turn is probably going to be a good idea. So let's throw out the Great Henge before we play any more creatures. Tap that down for mana immediately, and we're not going to worry about landfall just yet. Wondering if we get down Rhystic Study or the Glade Walker. I think we draw more cards with the Glade Walker, so anyway, 3 visits first. Yeah, and we can actually afford the Rhystic Study as well, so let's go Ancient Tomb into the Glade Walker Ritualist. That has changelings, so it is both a bird and a beast. Only gets copied once, but it will trigger the Wirewood Savage. Okay, and with a bunch of creatures in play, we get into a Thunderfoot Baloth, which will give everything +2/+2 twice, so +4/+4 and trample. Draw a card with the Glade Walker when it enters. The Great Henge will draw us. The Wirewood Savage will draw us on the original entering with the Great Henge. The token doesn't trigger the Great Henge, of course. Okay, so managing to ride it out long enough in order to actually get some stuff going here. So drew into Sawtusk Demolisher, which is obviously a beast. The Thragtusk is as well. More beasts than birds in this deck. Let's go for the Rhystic Study. Try and keep these lands up. And I dare say everyone has their eye on us now anyway, so let's see, who do we start swinging in at? We'll block the Varragoth even though it has Death Touch, so I'll hold back a blocker for that. Let's swing in the 6/6 Woodland Bellowers, both of them, or the 6/5s, in towards Jared. I can hold back the 4/4 with the plus counter on it. That can block the Varragoth quite nicely. It will get +1/+1 from the Sword of the Animist. So they take the hit, go down to 28. We pass the turn tapped out. The Boros player over here discarding all cards in hand and drawing that many. So that is 5 cards in hand at the moment. Okay, so in the bin, a couple of lands and a Pierre Nalaar. And now throwing into playing Artbound Worker and a Chief of Foundry. They come into play tapped thanks to our Manglehorn. Do get indestructible on all of their stuff, so they can swing in here if they want to. Decide against it, so just passing straight through to Dihada. Dihada playing Gadrak Crown Scourge, and they do pay into our Rhystic Study tax. And then the Sword of the Animist goes on to the Varragoth, so I dare say whoever they swing in at, apart from us, will not block this. Alright, they do swing in towards us, so I'll definitely get rid of that. Sword of the Animist going to do a lot of work over the course of the game, that's why I can regret not getting the, what is it called, the Trigon Predator I think it's called. It can get rid of multiple artifacts and enchantments over the course of the game. We will block with the 4/4, they will trade each other. They get a couple of artifacts there, so the Gadrak can, yes it can attack because they control 4 or more artifacts now. Jared Carthalion coming into play, allowing us to draw a card with the Rhystic Study. That is a Mistform Ultimus. Again, obviously counts as both a bird and a beast, making the Boros player the Monarch. And then activating the Stoneforge Mystic will bring in an equipment. That is the Darksteel Plate, comes into play tapped, but it doesn't matter. And they didn't go for anything with the land tax there, so 6 cards in hand at the end of the turn. Okay, gets us into Garrick's Pack Leader, so yeah, can stand to start drawing a hell of a lot of cards here. I think we're in a really good position to not lose to a board wipe immediately, so arguably like to stay in that position. I think mutating the Sawtusk Demolisher would be alright. Putting that onto this thing is probably okay. Oh, and it has to go onto a non-token creature, alright. In that case, let's go for the Ledger Shredder first. Of course, that is a bird, so we do get a copy of that. And then the non-token version comes in, we'll get a plus counter on it, and we draw to the Great Henge. That is a Kraytooth Behemoth, so argument to be made for us just slamming down a bunch of creatures here. I think that would be unwise, to be honest, so let's just go for the Sawtusk Demolisher onto the Ledger Shredder. And that triggers both the Ledger Shredders, because this is the second spell we've played this game, so let's put the Tawnos on the stack first. I don't think it really matters. We draw and discard, I think. Fine to get rid of a breeding pool there, really. I like all the cards in my hand is the problem. And then there is another mutate effect, which can ramp us, so let's see. I think it's the Thragtusk is one of the worst cards, to be honest. I'm trying to think around a board wipe at the moment. Rampaging Baloths could get us back pretty quickly, but let's get rid of Rampaging Baloths. We do need lands in hand in order to make the full effect of that, which Migratory Greathorn could do well with it. It's, difficult thing that. Anyway, let's use that ability, make a copy of the Sawtusk Demolisher. We will put the Demolisher over because it is a 6/6. So now a 6/6 Trample Flyer, and we get a Sort of a Beast within here. So go after the Sword of the Animist. Wirewood Savage, a beast entered, so we draw a card into a Nature's Law. And now the original Sawtusk Demolisher will enter. I'll put that over, I don't think it really matters. And that means it triggers twice because it was already mutated, so trying to play nice here, we'll have to start going after people's lands if we're not careful. That is indestructible, otherwise I will blow it up. Let's go after the Thought Vessel, go after the land tax as well. Could be nasty and go after their green mana. Draw a card to the Wirewood Savage again. Okay, and Castle Garenbrig can be our land for the turn. I don't think we've made a land yet. Noteworthy that the Wirewood Savage is triggering on these entering, by the way. This is whenever a beast enters anywhere on the battlefield. Okay, Adrix and Nev. So throw down the Castle Garenbrig. Play out the Nature's Law. That can just be a Tangled Islet, I think. Get out the tap land while we don't need it, and then I'll mutate a Migratory Greathorn onto something. I don't want to trigger the Sawtusk Demolisher a million times because we're just blowing up lands at that point. So we'll throw this onto the Wirewood Savage, I think. Again, the copy comes down first. We will put it over because it updates the power and toughness to a 3-4 from a 2-2. We get the Rampant Growth effect. And then the next one comes in and triggers twice thanks to it already being mutated. I assume you already know how mutate happens by now, but ramping very nicely this turn. Only 3 basics left in the deck is noteworthy. Okay, so I think we can swing in towards the Boros player this time, show our opponent that we are looking to spread the damage out a little bit. Could lose one of our Woodland Bellowers here, but not too worried about that. So the Beast Token and the Signal Pest Chump. And we're just waiting on a board wipe at this point, really. Queen Kayla deciding to discard the hand again. Just getting a free Containment Construct into play there, which will be useful with their commander. In the bin, our Hamlet's Archive, Psychosis Crawler, and a Recommission. Then Path to Exile going on to the Sawtusk Demolisher. Which, yeah, I'm fine with. It gets rid of a big flyer for us. But I wasn't looking to start abusing that and blowing up a bunch of lands anyway. I think we're already quite far ahead of our opponents. Does mean we've only got 1 flyer left for the Gadrick though. Drew into a Scavenger Grounds there, by the way. So we get another basic out thanks to the Path to Exile. 2 basics left we need to remember. And if we could have guaranteed not seeing a board wipe last turn, I might have gone for the Rampaging Baloths and ended up ramping a hell of a lot, as well as getting all the 4-4 beasts out, and that would have set us up nicely for the Craterhoof, maybe even the Thunderfoot as well. So yeah, we'll just have to see what happens over the next turn. No guarantee that we'll have our board intact by the time our turn comes around again. Thinking the Scavenger Grounds might be good against the Boros player, because if they use like some kind of mass artifact reanimation, then they may well benefit greatly from that. This looks dangerously close to the Ultimatum. They're tapping their mana quite carefully. I'm hoping it's not Ruinous Ultimatum, because obviously we've got nothing against that. Well, going for Loyal Retainers first, if they do have it. We will draw, which is dangerous. We do have, yep, if they do have a board wipe, now we've got an answer to it, as long as they don't get rid of the Birds of Paradise. So I hope we don't see a board wipe from them now, because they just drew us a card into the answer that we needed against it. Loyal Retainer's going to grab back the Varagoth, which I don't think they were expecting us to block last turn. Okay, and there we go, and Elesh Norn. So somewhat of a board wipe. We'll lose some creatures to this. The Ledger Shredder going to loot us, and the Rhystic Study will trigger as well. They can't afford to pay for that. Draws us into a Rampant Growth. Okay, and into a Cavern of Souls, so I think we can discard. Yeah, we'll get rid of the Rampant Growth. I don't think we're going to make use of that. We've only got 2 basics left anyway, so might as well put another plus counter on the Ledger Shredder. Oh, I actually didn't float mana from the Birds of Paradise there. Should have floated blue mana, but I don't think our opponent's got anything anyway. Some creatures go down here. Modular puts a plus counter on the Chief of Foundry. We lost a couple of creatures, including the Manglehorn there. So no more an offer you can't refuse for us now. Perhaps should have tapped down the Birds of Paradise and held up a dual land. And now swinging in towards us. We've got a 4-4 and a 5-5. Don't think we can make any decent blocks here. No, we can't, so we'll just take the damage. Then Gadrick is going to make a couple of its untapped treasures this time. The Manglehorn did some sneaky work for us behind the scenes there. They got 7 treasure tokens here, which would have come into play tapped if not for the Elishnorn. Only 1 card left in hand though. So assuming the board doesn't get wiped by the Naya player, we've got half a shot of winning this one. Ulrich of the Krallen Horde, allowing us to draw into Silver Raven, which I think I'll be able to get down before the Thunderfoot Baloth and the Craterhoof to give further buffs. Pointed the trigger from this at their commander, so that is now a 5/5. Then an equipment going on to the Jared, giving that indestructible. It is only going to cost 1 to equip that thanks to the Aster. Now a 1/1 swings in to the left. The Aster swings in over there as well against the 1/2. The Beast is a 1/1, so we can block that. Obviously just going after the Monarch though, so trying to go wide on them. Deciding to just take it, so they leave them with the Beast for some reason. Now the problem is we can't deal damage to Jared. We got rid of the Pariah Shield, which is obviously useful. Masked Vandal is exile, so we can exile this thing. That's a really lucky top deck for us. So we'll activate the Castle Garenbrig and make some green mana. Then that allows us into the Masked Vandal. We get a copy of this thanks to it being both a beast and a bird, and we do have creatures to exile from the bin, so we can exile multiple things here if we want to. Migratory Greathorn going to be triggered here thanks to a beast entering, and we'll definitely exile the Darksteel Plate. So drawing a card, we see the Twinning Staff, which is that's going to be funny with a Craterhoof. I might actually forego the Thunderfoot Baloth in order to play this down instead. Didn't see the Jared's Hourglass come down either, so we're best getting rid of that while we can as well. Draw a card from the original entering to the Great Henge and Migratory Greathorn, or the Wirewood Savage. We'll draw as a card, that's mutated, don't forget. So I think we're fine to just throw down the Command Tower here, and then let's go for that Twinning Staff. That's the second spell we've cast this turn, so Ledger Shredder going to loot us, and gets us into Azuri's Predation. I think we're fine to get rid of the Cavern of Souls here, and then we'll just slam down the Craterhoof Behemoth. We can actually go Adrix and Nev here as well. Yeah, just really trying to make sure that we get as much damage through as possible, because I want to one-shot the whole table here if we can. That draws us a card with the Great Henge. Want to be able to hold up the Offer You Can't Refuse as well. Draws us into Augury Owl. Let's get down this Craterhoof. So we decide to copy with the Tawnos, and because of the Twinning Staff being in play, we just automatically get another copy. So 3 Craterhoofs coming into play here. Draw when the beast enters, so we draw 3 times. Not sure if we can one-shot the whole table actually. We'll soon find out. Oh, I'm wondering, I was just wondering then why we didn't get the additional copies there. Played the Adrix and Nev into the Elishnorn. Yeah, totally forgot about that. Anyway, a 34-33, we've got a 31-33 commander. All this stuff has trample. Obviously the Craterhoofs have haste as well. So a 33-33, 24-24, 15-15. So let's see who we can deal with here. We can take the flyer straight in at the Jared player, because there's no reaches over there, so that's a one-shot. And then this is 99 damage minus 7, 13 and 5. And that will be 81 points of damage, assuming that they don't have removals. So, yeah, we'll go in with, I don't know, another 15-15 down the middle as well. And then the rest can go in at the Boros player. So I'm pretty sure I've done that right. Might be that the Dihada has a darkness. I appreciate my opponents playing this out if they don't have anything. Alright, awesome, and managing to one-shot the table, so I did work it out correctly apparently. I don't think any blocks were made there, so the life totals don't really count towards anything. I was very much looking forward to playing Tawnos the Toymaker. I thought I was the only one, and maybe I am the only one. Doesn't seem to be getting the appreciation it deserves here, but hopefully we've shown just how strong this can be. I mean, we went largely without seeing any removal, didn't see a single board wipe, so that's relevant, but we're in Simic, we can play counter magic against such things. I choose not to run too much counter magic in my big stompy creature Simic decks, because well, it just turns into generic Simic, counter everything you do, draw all the cards in the world. But we can still do big, fun, stompy stuff here, as we've seen. Who knew that Kraytooth could wipe out an entire board in one turn? I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.